Although he was taken from her when she was just 5 years old, JFK and his daughter Caroline shared a special bond, and it's a bond that she continues to honor to this day. John F. Kennedy adored his daughter Caroline. In an interview for the John F. Kennedy Library Oral History program, Caroline's nanny, Maud Shaw, painted a touching portrait when speaking about the relationship between father and daughter. Shaw joined the family when Caroline was just 11 days old. She remembered Kennedy being anxious but elated to welcome his daughter to the family, and she recalled his fear of dropping the baby and hesitancy about giving Caroline her bottle. Shaw went on to say, "But he really loved her, and when he came into the house, he always came straight upstairs to the nursery. When that child was about 8 to 12 weeks old, she always smiled for him when she never did for anyone else. She seemed to love him from the very beginning." The bond between father and daughter was unique and unbreakable. Shaw said, "He loved her and she adored him. There was nobody like him, her father to her." John F. Kennedy was already a Massachusetts senator in 1957 when Caroline was born. As busy as he was, especially after he decided to run for president in 1960, JFK always made time for his little girl. Maud Shaw said in her interview for the John F. Kennedy Library Oral History program, "He always played with her and romped around with her and told her little stories and read books to her in his own fashion, letting her turn over the pages, and she would love those evenings with him." In 1960, JFK was spotted taking a break from the campaign trail to spend a couple hours with Caroline, carrying her in one arm and an oversized Raggedy Ann doll in the other. Shaw said, "I don't think any child could have had as much love as this child had." While Caroline Kennedy's childhood was anything but typical, John and Jackie Kennedy wanted her life to be as normal as possible. As Maud Shaw recounted in her oral history interview, the fact that JFK was one of the most powerful men in the world wasn't impressed on the little girl. Even though she watched his presidential inauguration on television, Shaw said young Caroline didn't understand what a big deal it was.
"Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country."
Shaw explained, Mrs. Kennedy wished it that way. She didn't want them to feel that they were different to any other children, so she never pressed that too much.
She wanted to make this formal public house a home, taking them out to splash around in the famous fountain on the White House lawn.
Even after moving into the White House, Caroline led a structured life. The day always began with the kids eating with their parents, and JFK would always see them off to bed. John F. Kennedy didn't mind his children running around the Oval Office. One famous image shows a young Caroline hiding under his desk. In fact, images of Caroline in her dad's office became so ingrained in the American consciousness that when she appeared on The Late Show with David Letterman in 2011, he asked if she minded him showing the pictures to the audience, and she replied, "No, but everyone else is probably tired of looking at them." Playing in the office was part of Caroline's routine. She later told the Boston Globe that she spent her time there, quote, making construction paper necklaces, eating candy, and running around his desk. While Caroline and her brother, John F. Kennedy Jr., may not have had free reign of the West Wing, presidential business did have to be conducted after all. Their frequent presence in the Oval Office is a testament to JFK's love for his kids. On November 22, 1963, President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, and the entire nation plunged into grief. Caroline Kennedy was just 5 years old. The loss of a parent is heartbreaking under any circumstances, but the fact that JFK's death was a national tragedy meant that the family couldn't grieve privately. It was reportedly Maud Shaw who was tasked with breaking the devastating news to young Caroline. Shaw wrote in her memoir, White House Nanny, that she went to Caroline's bed that night, unable to stop crying. The little girl asked her what was wrong. Shaw recalled, "I took her in my arms. I can't help crying, Caroline, because I have some very sad news. Then I told her. It was a dreadful time for us both. Eventually she fell asleep while I sat on the bed, still patting her. At last, I tiptoed from the room, leaving the door open just a crack as always." Even though she's lived most of her life without him, the bond between Caroline Kennedy and her father remains strong. She's never forgotten her love for him and the void his death left in her life. In a 2017 video from the JFK Library in honor of what would have been her father's 100th birthday, Caroline spoke about her father's enduring legacy and how much he still means to her.
"I've thought about him and missed him every day of my life."
She went on to say that growing up without him was made easier by all the people who kept him in their hearts, who told me that he inspired them to work and fight and believe in a better world, to give something back to this country that has given so much to so many. Caroline Kennedy was devastated by her father's death, but the Kennedy family is a large one, and there were relatives to step in as father figures for her and her brother, John F. Kennedy Jr. After JFK's death, his brother, Robert F. Kennedy, tried to fill the void he left behind. He spent a lot of time with Caroline and her brother and was fond of giving them piggyback rides. Kathy McKeon, Jackie Kennedy's assistant and author of the memoir Jackie's Girl, told People he was very, very good to them. Caroline and her brother were crushed by the early death of their uncle. She was just 10 years old when Robert Kennedy was assassinated.
Senator Robert Francis Kennedy died at 1:44 a.m., June 6, 1968.
McKeon remembered, "It was a very sad day. It was a sad day for everybody." Another Kennedy brother, Edward, also did his best to look out for JFK's children. When Caroline got married, it was her uncle who gave her away. In a speech at the 2008 Democratic National Convention, she said, "In our family, he has never missed a graduation, a first communion, or the chance to walk one of his nieces down the aisle. He has a special relationship with each of us, and his 60 great nieces and nephews all know that the best cookies and the best laughs are always found at Uncle Teddy's."
He showed us how to keep going no matter how hard things were, to love each other no matter how mad we got, and keep working for what we believe in.
Decades after John F. Kennedy's death, there is no shortage of people keeping the family in public life and consciousness. JFK's nephew, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., is a lawyer and activist who has raised eyebrows for his false claims that vaccination is linked to autism. Another cousin, Patrick J. Kennedy, spent nearly 2 decades in public office in the U.S. House of Representatives. JFK's niece, Maria Shriver, is a TV journalist and was formerly the First Lady of California during her marriage to ex-husband Arnold Schwarzenegger. Caroline Kennedy is a lawyer who has served as the U.S. ambassador to Japan and Australia. She is keenly aware that she represents her family in everything she does, and is determined to honor her dad through her work. In 2022, after arriving in Australia to take her post as ambassador, she told the press, "My family legacy is something I'm really proud of, and I try to live up to. I think the fact that it means something to people around the world makes me really proud, and I want to be worthy of it and do what I can to continue the values that my father lived by." Caroline Kennedy has been very protective of her father's memory. She serves as the honorary president of the John F. Kennedy Library Foundation, which commemorates the late president's life and legacy. She also sits on the committee of the John F. Kennedy Profile and Courage Award, an honor given to those who fight for justice and democracy, as JFK did. In the late 90s, Caroline and her brother, John F. Kennedy Jr., filed a lawsuit to reclaim some of their dad's property. They alleged that JFK's secretary, Evelyn Lincoln, had stolen items belonging to the late president. Lincoln gave away or sold many of the items, and after her death, much of the memorabilia was to be auctioned off, including the briefcase JFK carried on the day he died. The siblings sued to stop the auction, and many of the items that had once belonged to their father were eventually recovered. In a joint statement about the recovered property, the Kennedy children said, "They once belonged to our father. They now belong to our family, to history, and to the American people." JFK Jr. was killed in a plane crash in 1999, leaving Caroline as the only surviving child of Jackie and John F. Kennedy. Perhaps one of the more touching ways Caroline Kennedy has shown her lasting love for her father is the naming of her son, whose given name is John Bouvier Kennedy Schlossberg. Both his name and his nickname Jack are a clear nod to Caroline's late father. Schlossberg is JFK's only grandson. He has 2 sisters, Rose and Tatiana, and while he never met his grandfather, he holds JFK in high esteem. In a 2016 piece for Politico, Schlossberg referred to himself as, quote, "a student of his life, legacy, and administration." There's been speculation that Schlossberg could one day follow in his grandfather's footsteps, all the way to the White House. While he hasn't yet run for office, he has degrees in law and business from Harvard, and gave a speech at the 2020 Democratic National Convention.
"We can reach these new frontiers, but only with a president who asks what he can do for our country."
Whatever he does, he's certain to honor his late granddad.
I'm inspired by my family's legacy of public service. It's something that I'm very proud of.